And welcome to the Arnette Report. This is a video business magazine that's designed to illustrate best practice examples about how local professionals are doing their marketing and advertising. And it's all brought to you by WAVA Radio, Conference Direct, Karen's Custom Images, and Mary Kay Cosmetics. So tonight we have an exciting attorney from the local area here, Michael Mort, who's going to tell us things that we should know about the law. And welcome to our program, Michael.
Thank you.
So when you were 7 years old, did you tell your mom, I want to grow up and be an attorney?
No, I said the opposite. I want to be a mathematician or an engineer.
Really?
Yes.
And you grew up, what's that?
That's what I became.
Oh, yeah. So where did you grow up at?
A small town called St. Louis, Missouri. I was the one who escaped. You probably haven't met many people from St. Louis.
Only when they play our baseball team, so that's another story. And what led you into law? Did you have an inclination in high school that you were thinking about that?
No, I really never did. I wanted to be an engineer. I did science in college, and I became an engineer and started a software company and grew that and sold it. It wasn't until then I decided to look around what else to do next, and I thought about becoming a lawyer because I didn't like lawyers before. I thought, well, I'll do that better.
How'd that work out for you?
Well, I like it. I have a bigger purview about different applications, more industries than the one little narrow niche I was in before.
Right. So every time we turn around, it seems like there's an attorney for something, and they're highly specialized in some cases, and then there's a few generalists. How would you characterize your practice?
Well, I'm pretty focused. I focus on business owners and businesses. I like helping small businesses because I've been there. And I like to help build their value through intellectual property, which is about patents and trademarks and copyrights. So those are my two specialties, my two special areas.
And that gets to be pretty much an important issue in today's marketplace, doesn't it?
Yeah, I like to say that the foundation of wealth in the modern economy is ideas. But ideas are free for everyone to use unless you do something to protect them. And when you do, that becomes intellectual property.
Can you give us an example, without being too specific, of some of the kind of trouble that a business owner who thinks he's protected but it's not, what kind of trouble can he get into?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of people pick a name because they think it's really cool. They'll pick a name for the company or for the product, and they don't do enough research. They find out later, after maybe investing tens of thousands of dollars in marketing, that that name is actually property of somebody else. So they get a cease and desist letter, and all of their marketing is out the window. They have to start over. As many times you hear stories like that. So a simple review of what's available. If the name you have that you had thought you wanted to use is already taken, you have to come up with a different name.
And does that also include, for instance, jingles and background music that might be copyrighted?
Yeah, so the first thing I was talking about was trademark. Copyright is something totally different. It's a different brand. Well, it's not a form of intellectual property, but it has different rules. And you can, if you intentionally infringe on somebody's copyright, then of course you would be guilty, and you would have to stop doing that. You can. There are some subtle rules about independent development of copyrightable material, but we won't go into that technical discussion now.
Say there's got to be some business owners out there who may not have done their due diligence and researched information on that. Is that something that your firm could provide a service for them to kind of help clear the decks for them?
Yeah, one of the things that I really enjoy is teaching people about the law. I find it interesting that a lot of people think they can be their own attorney. They start out with good intentions. They have to save money, perhaps, when they're first starting out as a young entrepreneur. So I teach courses in this topic and topics like intellectual property and how to start a business, and I post a lot of information on my website.
Oh, okay, so there's information there that anybody can access. It's good advice.
Exactly, and the website is argentplacelaw.com.
And we'll have that on the trailer later. So
great.
Now I'm thinking in terms of some of the typical mistakes that business owners make when it comes to making sure that their name is protected or it's not protected.
Right.
What are some of the typical things that you see?
Well, let me answer that question slightly differently. Every business has relationships, and every business relationship is a contract. You can't imagine how many people enter into contracts without reading them. So the most typical mistake is people not reading the contracts they sign, and then 6 months, 2 years later, they want to figure out how to get out of it. Then they start calling lawyers. They know they can't be their own attorney at that point in time.
Yeah.
So I work with my clients to make sure that the contracts they're signing are in their best interest, or the contracts that they write for their own customers are enforceable.
And in today's marketplace, is that an issue?
Oh, it's always an issue. We're in of course, a fast-paced market. Everybody wants to get things done as quickly as possible. Sometimes they just say, "I want to get the deal done. Do it as quickly as you can." I can turn around a review of a contract in a day. It's not really an issue, but some people think it could be.
You know, I'm thinking of how many people that are jumping on the internet bandwagon and they're forming companies and trying to, make their millions of dollars on this. And I got a feeling that they may be a lot more vulnerable than they think they are. Have you found that to be true?
You know, I just want people to start companies. I think ideas are fun. They're great. The foundation of building wealth in the modern economy is ideas. Transforming those into intellectual property so that they can be protected is the foundation of Western economy. So as long as they go through the proper steps to protect their ideas, I think that things will turn out right.
So let's talk about digital marketing, and is there a whole nother set of rules concerning that?
Well, of course there is. Much of digital marketing is about content. I have to tell you, I'm not a great marketeer. I hired a person to help me with that. I'd love to give Lauren Harry a plug. She works for me part-time, but she's a great person. So digital marketing is typically we call social media, and it's about writing content for your website. It's about interacting with other people through your Facebook account and LinkedIn, things like that. So content is covered by copyright, and what you say on the internet could impact you by libel, well, it's actually libel when it's written. So you have to be careful, of course. Then there's something, little known thing about what you allow your employees to say. The government restricts you from restricting your employees. They have to be free to say certain things on the Facebook accounts, for example. So hiring an attorney to help you guide you through the requirements for what you can and can't do on the internet and what your employees are allowed to do is important.
That could have a dramatic effect on your marketing, couldn't it?
Well, yes, of course you want to actually interact with your customers, so you probably don't do it yourself if you're the owner, so you hire people to help you do that and train them to do the right thing and not something that they would get you in trouble.
Now, does that make you liable for what they say?
Yes, of course. So whenever you have employees, the owner of the company or the company itself is actually liable for what employees do. So if they do something incorrect, if they engage in copyright infringement, if they pull down a picture to post on your website for you, but they don't get the rights to it, that's copyright infringement, and that impinges the company.
You know, this is interesting because I keep thinking of situations where a disgruntled employee leaves your firm and goes onto the internet and starts trashing you. Does an owner have any recourse on that?
That would not be my expertise, but I would think that as long as they're telling the truth about your company, they would be protected. The truth is always protected. Lies are not, though. So if they commit libel, then you should be able to sue them for that.
And that's the difference between libel being that it's
libel is when it's written, and slander is verbal.
Okay. So for the business people out there that may be getting ready to launch a new initiative, or perhaps may feel that they're one that they've already been active and put money into, may be a concern to them that they're in jeopardy, what can they do about it?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in general, let's say that a business owner is going to launch a new initiative, and he's a little concerned about what the intellectual property rights are, or things like that. Do you guys help with that too? Or?
Yes, of course. We can survey what the product might be and determine what form of intellectual property would be best for it. There are 4 forms of intellectual property: patents, trademarks, copyrights, and something called trade secrets. So we would take a survey of what's going on and make sure that the owner engages in the proper protection.
When dealing with business owners, what do you see that some of their biggest challenges are from a legal standpoint?
Well, always employees. So dealing with employees is difficult for everyone because not everyone has great interpersonal skills. But if you do things by the book, you stay ahead of the game. But more importantly, I think employees want to be recognized for their contribution. So establishing a groundwork where you allow your employees to express themselves and be contributing their ideas will help the company and also make employees more loyal.
Makes sense. So what advice would you give business owners that they've got a company that's somewhat successful, but they're starting to hear phrases or words that they use on a regular basis being duplicated to the point to where maybe somebody's sounding like them or trying to impersonate them?
Right.
Is there anything they can do about that?
Yes, of course, that would get into litigation. But the first step would be to be calm about it, contact your attorney, determine whether or not you have protection for the phrase or for the content. If it's a phrase that you use typically in your business and you have a trademark on it, then that's ownership. It would be like somebody stealing your car or your watch. You can send, if you know the person that's doing the infringement, you have your attorney send a cease and desist letter. If it's an innocent infringement, that sometimes just stops the situation in its tracks.
Excellent. What's one piece of advice you'd want to give people who are listening to this program that may need to resource, with someone like yourself? What advice would you give them in terms of, dealing with what they suspect may be an issue?
Well, I have to say that running a business is complex. It takes a lot of skills, and no owner, no single employee has all the skills necessary. So you often, business owners have to hire outside help from time to time. They probably don't do their own taxes. They shouldn't be their own attorney. So having good counsel in special areas, whether it's accounting, legal, marketing, and then seek out the advice of those counselors on a regular basis. In my case, helping to start the business, making sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, or when helping to grow the business, identifying the proper way to protect the intellectual property. And then everybody has a goal of selling at some point in time, so we also help with that.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you stopping by and talking with us about this, and hopefully maybe we can get you back a couple months from now and talk a little further on this. In the meantime, what's the easiest way for people to reach you?
Okay, you can go to my website, which is argentplacelaw.com, A-R-G-E-N-T place.com.
Excellent. And we'll be right back with something totally new that sounds familiar. It's very close to a television show, but this one is called Piranha Tank, and we'll be right back.